Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augment Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas, and I'm your host as usual. And obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 207 of the show. And before we get started, we're going to do a bit of house cleaning quick around here because, well, you guys know I like to do it around here, so it only makes sense that we do the house cleaning. So let's just get on with it. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening to today's episode. It really does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly take time out of your days to download these episodes, to share these episodes, to constantly keep letting me know how you feel, whether you like my stupid face or not, or like my opinions or not. I still greatly appreciate all the love, even though YouTube is still weird because they got rid of the dislike button. So I can't really tell you guys to, press the like or the dislike button and let me know how you feel since, well, it kind of doesn't matter anymore, but your love and support is still greatly appreciated. Thank you as well to the Patreon backers for supporting the show. You guys are also greatly appreciated. And to be honest, it's been pretty crazy. I'd say this past week, not only with what's been happening in the tech space, but just in general, like just personal stuff. And we'll talk about that near the end, like near the wrap up. But we did have a poll this week about the topics and the people voted. It was either going to be talking about the Apple VR/AR headset or talking about VR headsets in general, which talking about these buggers right here. Like, I have a VR headset. If you're watching the video version, you can clearly see I just pulled out my Oculus Quest 2. And if you're listening to the audio version, well, I have an Oculus Quest 2. I've talked about it multiple times that I've had my Quest for about 4 months now? I've had it since Black Friday of last year, and I haven't been able to use it so much given the fact of how crazy this semester has been, taking 15 credit hours and just also more busy work, to say the least. But we are going to be talking about the state of VR headsets, especially because of where they're going, not only in just this year, but going even past that. And there's a reason why I say this. This year, we are expected to have a good amount of big releases for VR headsets. We're expecting a new VR headset from Meta in regards to the next Oculus. The rumors are that it's going to be a more affordable, even smaller option. But besides the rumor mill, Sony came out and announced that they are working on a second VR headset as well. And to be honest, a lot of people are very excited due to the fact of what they mentioned of improved audio, improving the visuals of the PSVR headset, brand new controllers. And also on top of this, we are expecting that Apple would announce or maybe give a teaser or anything in regards to the AR/VR headset that they're working on, because as we'll talk about that probably a little bit later in its own discussion, probably in another episode once we have something a little bit more concrete about it. But VR is in a very interesting place. Here's what I mean by that. Personally, for me, my first experience with VR was when I was in high school. Like, it's still crazy to think about it, like 4 years ago, that one of my friends in the robotics team, he had invited us over to his house to, celebrate a banquet, like the end of the year, to celebrate, like, hey, this is how great we did this season, just have fun, spend time with one another. And that was my first time ever getting to use a VR headset, and it was really weird. I'm just being honest with you. It was the game we played. I remember vividly. It was that skyscraper game where you basically are like essentially on a plank, and then you're basically simulating you getting pushed off and falling to your death. And to be honest, it freaked me out a lot. Like, I'm just being honest, it really did freak me out a lot. Fast forward to November of 2021, and I get my Oculus Quest 2. And to me, I always thought VR, and maybe you share the same sentiment, where I always thought VR was kind of weird. I thought it was always a very niche. I always thought it was a very niche product, if I'm being honest with you. I always thought that it didn't make much logical sense, that I didn't understand why people enjoy their VR headsets. I didn't understand why people wanted to immerse themselves into it when, I prefer playing on my PC or playing on my Xbox. But there's some people that their primary console or primary method of gaming is with a VR headset. Primarily like seeing how well the Oculus Quest 2 sold and how, well, surprisingly, it's considered one of the better VR headsets on the market right now, given what you get out of it, the features, stuff like that. Like, to me, I've really been enjoying it. The main knack I have with it is just the battery life. And the fact it's kind of weird when it comes to PC VR, because yes, you can connect it to your PC and everything using a USB-C cable. However, it doesn't charge it while you're using it. So it's kind of weird. Just saying, like, it should have passed through, just saying. But anywho, where am I getting at with all of this? To me, after experiencing VR for myself and having more time with it, I understand why some people view this as not only, some people say the future of gaming, some people can say the future of communication, that the day of the smartphone, or probably the age of the smartphone, will long be forgotten, even though it's still weird to say the smartphone is going to go away anytime soon, given the fact that, well, someone even mentioned this a little bit. This is just a little side commentary, that I don't get why we still keep, like, the person who's like mentioning this is like, he doesn't understand why we keep calling these things smartphones when these things are pretty much the typical phone nowadays. Like, smartphones are the average phone. So he doesn't get why they still keep calling them smartphones when we should just be calling them phones, because, well, that's what they are. I don't know. But a lot of people have been saying that, yeah, VR will change the way that we communicate with one another. It'll change how we handle interactions with one another, whether it be online meetings, whether it be, social gatherings, whether it be, FaceTiming calls. Like, that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later with the Apple part. But a lot of things. And then, well, the big culprit in all this is the metaverse. The idea of a giant online, I wouldn't say online social space, but more of a giant online virtual world that will seemingly replicate our own, or I would say, in my better way of describing it, is living out your fantasies and your dreams in an online virtual simulation. Why does that sound like almost every single RPG anime ever made that does VR? I'm looking at you. Like, for anyone that watches anime and you know what SAO is, that's what I'm pretty much getting at, is that there's some homies that really want that to be the reality. I'm just being real, homie. That's pretty weird. But hey, man, you do you. But the metaverse is, on some levels, interesting. Granted, there are some big players trying to get ahead in regards to the whole metaverse idea. Primarily, well, Meta and Microsoft are like the two big players in this case. However, we still got to talk about the whole hardware thing, since, well, VR headsets are hardware. And in their current state, yes, there's a very broad market for VR headsets right now. Yes, there's still older ones that people like using, like primarily the Valve Index. It's definitely the older one of the bunch, but it's still considered one of the more popular VR headsets on the market. Yes, like its whole bundle, like the whole thing together with the sensors and everything, is like $1,000, but it still has the best audio experience out of all of them. It has really good resolution. Well, I think it does. It was mentioned that it has good resolution. Like, that's one benefit that people like about the Quest 2, is that for the value, for the price, and for the portability, it has good resolution and, well, a wide game library, since the Quest 2 is considered the more popular platform for VR development, and it just makes sense why a lot of people like developing for it. But we have other players, like I mentioned earlier. Sony is coming out with a new PlayStation VR headset. That's one thing I can give Sony, to be honest. If I'm being honest with you guys, I appreciate that Sony actually made a VR headset. It's still kind of stupid how Microsoft hasn't really dabbled into making a VR headset for the Xbox, given primarily how powerful the Series X is. And at the same time, they could have done it with the Xbox One X, given that it was more powerful than PS4 Pro. And the PS4 Pro was able to have the VR headset. Microsoft also owns PC. You get what I'm getting at? It doesn't make much logical sense why they haven't. Like, I think it'd be really cool if they made a VR headset. I think they would have a lot more R&D to go into it, and I think it'd just be a little bit more fun to have that in there, or at least for them to try to make one. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually do make one. Like, let's be real here, they probably will. They haven't thought about it, or they probably have, they just haven't wanted to make it a reality yet. But the other big player in all this is Apple, which kind of sounds weird to say that Apple is the other big player in this situation. I know you're probably thinking, Josh, what the hell? And I'm like, well, let me explain. So yes, there have been rumors going around for months that Apple is working on a very, very, very expensive AR/VR headset. There's also the AR glass that they're working on, which that's a whole different product. It's not like the traditional like VR headset. Like, this will be like AR glass is more like AR glasses, but that's the more consumer line, while the AR VR headset is like a more premium, higher end product that in theory won't be made for consumers, but people will still buy it and then review it, and the whole normal jazz. This is where it gets interesting with what Apple wants to do with their AR/VR headset, which one of the main things is FaceTime. And it sounds weird because how are you going to do FaceTime with a headset? And you're basically like, the whole point of FaceTime is like, I can see your face, you can see my face. So it's like using the VR headset for FaceTime kind of makes zero sense. Like, I'd be able to see your face clearly, but how would you really see my face? And one of these solutions that was mentioned that I was looking at this story earlier was that they're looking at using like the whole memojis, like using the new memoji stuff, like using that to accurately track your face, your facial gestures, and able to properly translate that into like basically like it's someone's looking at you talking and doing all your normal stuff while you're talking. It's just the memoji doing like basically the whole memoji stuff. To me, that's kind of weird, but it's also intuitive and smart at the same time. We don't really have much concrete, I'd say, information when it comes to the VR/AR headset from Apple. So that's why I don't really want to talk so much about it, since there's not so much concrete evidence, or I would say there's not a lot of concrete information about it. The other headsets, we do have more information. And I wouldn't be surprised by going on the record and saying this. I'm not going to be surprised if we start to see an increase in sales in VR headsets, not only this year, but also next year. Because yes, it is expected that Valve, they're also going to be working on a new VR headset. I wouldn't be surprised with the new Oculus headset that is even more entry level VR headset does become extremely popular. Like, the Quest 2 already is extremely popular. Like, at $300, it's one of the best VR headsets you can buy for $300. Like, I know people like the HP one. There's still the Valve Index. The only problem with it is, well, you can't just buy the headset by itself. Like, you have to buy the stations and everything, or like you have to buy the little base stations that come with it, and that's the only one that's available. So you kind of have to shell out the full $1,000 for it. And then, PlayStation coming out the VR headset as well, which we'll probably see more maybe in the middle of the year, probably near the end of this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it releases near the end of the year. That thing is probably going to sell great, given the fact that, well, I say it's going to sell great. It's really going to come down to, is it compatible with PC? And at the same time, what is the availability going to be looking like for the PS5? Since one of the main things that they advertise for it is that the PlayStation VR will have a compatibility mode, but more of it will have something to do with the new Gran Turismo game coming out, that you'll be able to use the VR headset in there to basically feel like you're actually driving the car. I wouldn't be surprised if PlayStation with this new VR headset is able to start bringing some of these PC VR games to the platform or having companies port them over, like the whole Resident Evil VR game. Like Resident Evil 4 VR, a lot of people have been talking about that. But one thing that really does interest me is the idea of VR being the platform or being the way that we are able to communicate going forward. And to be honest, from my experience, like one game I like playing on my Oculus Quest 2 is I think it's like Poker Star. It's basically the VR poker game. And to me, I find it very enjoyable due to the fact that I'm interacting with people in real time. I'm able to play a game of poker in real time with other people. And it's genuinely a really fun experience. And I've really enjoyed interacting with people on a game like that. Or even like some, like obviously there's other games like Beat Saber, and then like as per mentioned before, the Resident Evil VR games, Half-Life Alyx, which is considered one of the greatest VR games ever made. To me, it wouldn't surprise me if VR ends up becoming the new way of communicating, where everyone just ends up buying into a VR headset, or every household ends up having a VR headset that they can use. And, you know, depending on how this whole metaverse crap turns out, which to be honest, I don't really care. I don't care about the metaverse that much. But I do see VR being a new platform or a new way to, I'd say, add more depth to the interactions that we have with one another online. I always have been told that an experience becomes more memorable as the more senses you engaged. The more senses that are engaged in an experience will allow you to remember it better. And I've always been a firm believer of that. I always believe that, you know, the more, like as I keep saying it, the more senses that are engaged, that while you're experiencing something, the more likely you are to remember it and you won't forget. And I feel like with a platform like VR, the fact that we are able to do much more with interacting with one another in terms of these interactions, that, well, yes, it is still weird and clunky because, well, that's just how things are. But how are things going to look in the next 5 years? 10, 30, 60, 100? How are things going to look like with technology growing at the rate that it is? How much more could something like this improve drastically? And to be honest, as it improves, it probably become much cheaper and much more affordable. And like I said, I'm not going to be surprised if it starts to become common practice where PC gamers always have a VR headset with their build, or it's included in their build. Like, you know, they probably throw it into their budgets to make sure they get one. I wouldn't be surprised if everyday households start investing in these things and using them as a way to, you know, a new way to interact with loved ones that they aren't, like, besides like doing the more traditional FaceTime or face calling, or even just giving them a call, but like adding more depth to those interactions of like interacting with somebody. Like, to me, that's always been my biggest takeaway that I've learned so far when it comes to VR, is it changes the way that how you interact with the world around you. It changes how you, I'd say, even interact with other people. Like, it gives you a new way of interacting with people. And that's, I'd say that's something that keeps drawing me back into it. Why I like using my Quest 2, even though, yes, I'm being honest with you, I haven't used it so much because of my class schedules, which, to be honest, I probably might end up using it tonight at the time of recording. I'm probably going to use it today. I'm just being completely honest with you. Although Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duels has been taking a lot of my time, and also my tests and homework and job on campus have been taking a lot of my time. Oh, God have mercy. I really don't get a break, do I? But that's fine at the end of the day. But at the end of all of this, I think VR is in a good place right now. I think in comparison to where it was, even just saying 4 years ago, it's in a far better place than what it was 4 years ago. The fact that it's more widely accepted, the fact that more people have a better means of, I'd say, a better point of entry, even though, yes, the main downside people have with, say, something like the Quest 2 is the fact that it's connected to Meta and Facebook. You know, once they get rid of that requirement of having a Facebook account for it, yes, it's still connected to Meta and Facebook, but at least you don't have to have a Facebook account to, you know, be connected to it. So, to be honest, the future of VR is looking very good. I'm very excited. The fact that we are getting new headsets this year is incredible. The fact that new players will be joining the space very soon. To be honest, it's a very exciting time. And to me, if you haven't jumped in on it, I'd say maybe do your homework. Figure out which VR headset is the best suit for you, since it's the same thing I tell you guys when it comes to buying smartphones, laptops, graphics cards. You always want to do your homework first. You always want to find what are you looking for. You have to really understand what are you looking for? What do you want it to do? What are you trying to accomplish with this? Because to be honest, everything is just a tool at the end of the day. You just need to find the right tool for you to do the right job. It's the same thing I tell people with cameras. It's like there is no camera that I would just say like, yes, this is the perfect camera for everyone, because everyone has a different way of viewing things. Everyone has a different way of doing things. Like everyone is unique and special in their own way. So there is no such thing as just one thing and I'd say like one device that is perfect for every single person, because that's not true. Everyone has preferences. Everybody has different things that they like, that they don't like. And at the end of the day, it doesn't change with what you do when it comes to buying a VR headset. It's coming down to what do you like? What do you not like? What features do you want? What features do you not want? Like it's understanding that balance of pros and cons and really figuring out what's best for you. But that's really what I have for the discussion when it comes to the state of VR headsets. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your podcast, let me know what you guys think. Leave a review for the show if you guys want. It's so greatly appreciated. To be honest, I'm just grateful for the opportunity you guys have allowed me to even just have a piece of your time. To be honest, it's been a bit rough over here due to the fact, like I mentioned, is classes have been a little bit crazy. A bunch of my tests this week. It's definitely wild. It's like the Wild West, which kind of ironic because I'm in West Texas. It pretty much is the Wild West out here, but we're still trying to keep our head up. At the end of the day, I'm still living. So that's all that matters at the end of the day is I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. I still have another day. The fact that I'm even given another day is a blessing. The fact that I still have all my friends, that I still have all my family, that I still have people that love and care about me, it helps keep me in check. Same thing with doing the show. The show definitely helps keep me in check as well. But I love you guys to death. Guys, please have yourselves a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend. Don't do anything dumb. Please continue to be kind and respectful to those around you, because let's be real, the world is still a weird place. It's pretty weird. So let's just try to be kind, respectful, courteous, mindful of those around us. And as always, don't do anything dumb. And I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.